Hello, I am Sandra Lee with miracleinspirations.com and the Breathe Life's Inspirations blog. Also, the Your Health on Stress and What You Can Do weekly video series talking about your health on stress and what you can do. Subscribe at miracleinspirations.com, and if you've been appreciating this Ask Me Anything series, then share it with your friends. Send more people over to the page. After Saturday, I am going to switch to a general Ask Me Anything topic. So not just food and eating, but whatever. And again, you're welcome to ask me anything, but I'm going to focus on some other things, including healing and all that kind of stuff, but keeping it general. So whatever comes up is going to come up. Okay, so today the topic is meal spacing and intermittent fasting and fasting. So I know Monica, who has been the originator of several of these topics coming up, including this one. We talked about meal spacing a couple days ago. So if you or anybody else had any questions come up about that, then go ahead and post them. But I'm going to go ahead and just start talking more about meal spacing. We talked last time about how part of the reason for spacing out the time between your meals is to enable your body's blood sugar metabolism to become more adaptable, more flexible. So when I eat every couple of hours, I'm not giving my body a chance to ever need to burn fat instead of glucose for fuel. So if I'm always feeding myself every time I get hungry, I'm always going to have blood sugar available. And so my body doesn't need to burn fat. Some people actively wish they could burn more fat. Those are people with weight concerns where they want to have their bodies be smaller. And as long as those people are continually putting more fuel in every time they get hungry, their body never actually flips over to really going in and cleaning the fats, the stored fat out of the fat cells, taking the fat cells that have gotten big and allowing them to become smaller because some of it's getting pulled out to be used as fuel. So as long as I eat every time my body wishes it had more food, I'm never going to need to go in and really clear out those fat cells. So part of the reason for stretching out the length of time between meals is to enable the body to actually go from sugar metabolism, which burns at a very high rate. I talked about blood sugar as being like kindling on a fire that just goes out really quickly. Okay, so it's like as long as I am continually feeding myself, I'm going to stay on that high burn rate for blood sugar and fuel. But when the kindling is gone, when the readily available blood sugar has been used up, the fuel, the natural fuel source, the sustainable fuel source is the fat, whether it be the fat that you've been eating or the fat that you have stored. And I talked last time, a couple of days ago, Sunday, when we did this topic of meal spacing. I talked about how, my body flips over into burning fat whenever it is, pretty much every day, when I run out of blood sugar. And it happens around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock is when I start noticing there's a little bit of hunger, and then it goes away. Now, personally, I don't have any weight that I need to reduce. I have been at a stable body weight since I was in my early 20s. Like, I don't gain or lose really much of anything. So how is it that I maintain consistent body weight when I'm doing this intermittent fasting thing, which we're going to talk about today, where I only eat basically one big, basically huge meal a day, and then I wind up, because I enjoy it, having a snack with my husband in the evening. That's what I eat pretty much every day. Not that I have to do it that way. I'm able to eat more meals if that's what's there to do. I mostly do that, on social occasions. So My metabolism is flexible. My ability to eat what I want when I want is like really adaptable, easy. So what makes that possible is that my body turns over to burning fat. But again, I don't have any weight to lose. My weight is stable. So the fat that I consume provides that readily available fuel. And, it's probable that there's a little bit of flow in and out of the fat that's stored in my fat cells, but it's pretty stable, right? So my body might go to my fat cells to pull out a little bit of fuel once in a while, and then I'm assuming it just goes right back in when more fuel is available, right? But it's stable. I don't notice a big fluctuation in my weight. So let's talk about intermittent fasting, because it looks like there's no questions from what I was talking about last time on Sunday about meal spacing. So what is intermittent fasting, right? So we've all heard of fasting, and what I'm going to call extended fasting is where I go for long periods of time not eating any food. Now, in my opinion, still drinking water is always wise, still getting salt is always wise, but not consuming any actual food. Nothing with, calories, fat, protein, carbohydrates. Not consuming any of that. That's considered fasting. Now, there's different ways of fasting. I mean, there are people who consider, it's still fasting when I'm just reducing the significant amount that I eat. And technically that is considered a fast. Okay, but strict fasting, extended fasting is what I'm going to call extended fasting, where I go for a long period of time, say a day or longer, of not consuming any food. So for me, I find it relatively easy, painless, effortless to fast for a whole day, just not have any food. So I live in British Columbia, and I spend a week or two at a time under normal circumstances in Olympia, where I work a lot. Most of my work is in Olympia. So when I'm in Olympia, I'm much more busy than I am at home. And sometimes when I am working, I may be working from as early as 7 o'clock in the morning till as late as 8 o'clock at night. And sometimes during those days, maybe my breaks are a half an hour long. Okay, so if I am in a day where I'm going from 7 in the morning to 8 in the evening, it's really easy and natural for me to have that a day where I just choose to not eat. It's like an effort to make sure that I address the whole food piece, so it's easier just not to. And I know that there are side benefits to doing that. Okay? But what makes it possible for me to do that is knowing that I don't ever have an energy drop when I do that. My normal energy level is here, and it stays pretty much the same all the time, no matter what I eat. I don't have energy spikes when I have blood sugar, when I have carbohydrates, and I don't have any energy drops. Not at all. Never. Since I started this intermittent fasting way of eating, I don't get hungry and I don't have energy drops. Never. Which is kind of crazy to say, because most people are accustomed to having times where they know that that's going to happen. They're going to get that spike and then that crash. Okay? So it's like when you have your body's ability to flip over to burning fat anytime blood sugar is not available, because that's what my body does. Okay, that gets rid of that whole energy up and down cycle and the hunger and all that. That just goes away. Okay, that's what makes it possible for me to go a whole day without eating. And again, it's effortless. I might get a little bit hungry at the end of the day, but it's like nowhere near how hungry I used to get before I started doing this. Okay, so and then usually I will go on and eat the next day. Okay, every once in a while I will go for 3 days without eating, and we'll talk about why in a minute. Okay, part of my goal is at some point to get to 5 days without eating, but I also know that there's not really any need for me to push it to that. if I had significant weight that I wanted to lose, I might have more interest in doing that because that might be something that would be accomplished beyond the 3-day fast that I already do. Okay, so why do I do the 3-day fast? I might as well talk about this part now and then go back to the intermittent fasting, which is talking about how to get there. Okay, so the main reason for doing the extended fasting, in my opinion, is detoxification. And on Saturday, the topic is going to be detoxification because someone asked for that, which is wonderful. Okay, but when I am in that fat burning mode, and I no longer have fat from my food to be able to burn, okay, that's when the body goes and it starts pulling out the stored body fat. Okay, it takes those fat cells that have gotten stuffed full of fat tissue, right, and it pulls it out of there so that the fat cell becomes smaller. Okay, so here's where detoxification comes in. Anytime I have toxins that are circulating in my bloodstream, my body has to get rid of them because it's poison. So if I am not able to urinate it out, meaning going out through the kidneys and the bladder, if I'm not able to excrete it through my feces and colon, okay, those are two of the primary ways that the body gets rid of toxins and waste and all kinds of stuff that it just doesn't need anymore. Okay, it's like parts of the food that my body hasn't been able to absorb. That also goes out through the colon, right? So those are primary detoxification methods, okay? But there's also the skin. Your skin is your largest detoxification organ. So when you are fasting, whether it be short-term fasting or long-term fasting, there's going to be more toxins coming out of your skin, and that's part of how the body gets rid of things that it doesn't need. Okay, so it's like when people have changed their diets and gone through detoxification cycles or partly through fasting, sometimes people will notice that they get rashes, right? Or even little particles coming out of their skin. So it's like one person I heard of had asbestos particles coming out of her skin. It was really wild. The rash that they tested and found it had this asbestos in it. But whatever it is that your body's trying to get rid of, the skin is one of the ways that it does that. And that's detoxification, right? So it's like the body is finding the closest route possible to out. And so sometimes that's the skin, okay? Plus, you also excrete toxins through your lungs, breathing them out, okay? So it's like those are all ways that your body has of getting rid of junk, whatever it is that doesn't need, toxins, okay, chemicals, pesticides, the stuff that we were talking about earlier, okay? I mean, you may have toxins from your personal care and house cleaning, all that kind of stuff. Just chemicals from they get in your body has to get rid of them somehow, okay? So if it's not able to, in the moment it's being poisoned, to get rid of whatever it is that's circulating, your body still has to pull it out of circulation because as long as it's in circulation, it's actively poisoning you, right? So one of the primary ways that the body does that, if it's not able to excrete it, is by storing it, putting it in what I call long-term storage. So a lot of these toxins are fat soluble. And so the easiest way for the body to put it into storage is to stick it into your fat. So toxicity is one reason why some people may be gaining weight, no matter what they do in terms of their eating, okay, is if I have toxins in my system that my body is not able to get rid of some other way, right, stores it in the fat cells. And it just hangs out there, sitting in the fat cells, right? It's not actively engaging with the rest of my body, so I'm not being actively poisoned anymore, which is terrific, right? Thank you, body, for being able to do that. So when, because of the way I'm eating and changing the way I'm eating, changing the way I live my life, okay, it doesn't necessarily mean, by the way, it's like the whole diet thing in the past has been eat less and exercise more. That's like incomplete, incorrect information. right? So it's like, it doesn't mean you have to go like kill yourself working out if you want to lose weight, change your body composition. And it's like, no, it's way more complicated than that. I mean, yes, doing some exercise is certainly going to be beneficial, and it helps to burn some calories and give your body more need for fuel, okay, that it can then pull out of the fat cells. But if you're just doing the eat less and exercise more piece, you're not doing the healing of the metabolism part that's really necessary. So doing the intermittent fasting thing is part of how you can get your metabolism to repair itself. So that when you do eat less, like fasting, okay, and exercise more, your body then really does go in and pull the stuff out of the fat cells. Okay, so it's like we're going to have to talk more about this metabolism another time because it's way more complicated. But I want to finish talking about fasting, okay, and then detoxification. When my body goes to this, imagine there's this fat cell, and it has stored all kinds of toxins in there as a way of getting it out of circulation. Plus, because of the way I've been eating, too much carbohydrates, too much sugar and bread and all that stuff, my body's had way more carbohydrates than it's been able to burn. Okay, too much blood sugar, and it had to get it out of circulation, right? And it stuffed it into the fat cells. Okay, so there's toxins laced throughout that fat tissue. All throughout the fat tissue, there's going to be toxins. Okay, how much depends on how toxic your body is. If you've had a lot of chemical exposure, if you've taken a lot of medications and drugs, right? That is part of what's going to be in those fat cells. Because these chemicals that we intentionally take because they're medications, right? They might be serving an actual purpose, which is why we're taking them, but that doesn't mean they're good for us. They're still poisons. Okay, so inside this fat cell, because it's layered in the fat a little bit over time, there's also layered in there toxins, chemicals, the medications that have been in my body over time. And so it's just every single layer of this fat deposit in each one of these cells, right, has toxins and chemicals and medications and, glyphosate and pesticides, herbicides, right? All of that stuff is in there, because that's how my body took it out of circulation, right? So it's a fabulous, wonderful, survival mechanism that we want our bodies to retain. That means my body is working the way it's supposed to, okay? But at some point, my body really wants me to come in and clear this stuff out so that it can get rid of all of those toxins and get rid of the fat that it doesn't need. So if I am, because of the way I'm eating and or fasting, right, allowing my body to go into this fat cell and pull that out, right? So it's like pull out a little bit of this fat in here and put it in the bloodstream, because that's what it does. Puts it in the bloodstream, it then goes and it uses that fat for fuel, okay? But at the time that it's pulling that fat out of there, it's also pulling out some of the toxins, some of the chemicals, some of the medications that have been stuffed into this poor little fat cell. And so that's detoxification, right? You're taking long-term storage, which is my fat deposits. That's long-term storage for whatever shit has been in there, right? Chemicals, garbage, okay? My fat cells are stuffed with fat with all these chemicals laced all throughout. So every time I go into this fat cell and pull it out, those toxins that are coming out with that fat are getting dumped into my bloodstream. And it's poisoning me again. But ideally, you want your body to be able to manage the little bit that's circulating and then excrete it through all those methods that we talked about earlier. So when you have an extended fast, right, like a whole day or many days where you're not eating, or you're not eating very much, okay, so much so that my body is going into more of my fat cells and pulling out the deposits, and it's dumping more of that fat cell accumulation of chemicals and toxins into the bloodstream at one time, right? Then that's when you have detoxification symptoms, because you are being poisoned by yourself, by the cleaning out of the long-term storage, cleaning out the closets. right? And you're taking, if you're doing longer fasting, right, your body is having to pull out more of the fat that's in there and dumping it into circulation, which again, in the long term may be good. But if you're doing it so much that you are wholesale clearing out that fat and dumping it, dumping it, right? You might be doing too much. Too much detoxification will make you sick. Not sick like diseased sick, but symptomatic. Headaches, body aches, body odor, bad breath, muscle soreness, joint soreness, um, you know, um, either constipation or diarrhea, right? Itchy skin. All of those are detoxification symptoms. Headaches is a real common one. Drowsiness, being tired, fuzzy brain, inability to think. All of those things are symptoms of toxicity. And if it's because of a process of healing that your body has been going through because you've been fasting, for example, right? And it's been going to the fat cells, pulling that up, putting it in the bloodstream. What you need is for your body to then be able to pull that out of your bloodstream and actually get rid of it through the urine, feces, skin, breathing, right? And there are binders that you can take that in your colon will like hold on to and actually enable your body to excrete the toxins. A real common issue that happens with like heavy metals and mercury and things like that is if that gets released from storage, right, into the bloodstream, but the body sometimes isn't able to actually get rid of it. And so it winds up being stored again, put back into the fat cells again to get it out of circulation. So it's like sometimes people have excess weight, not just because of how they eat, but because they're so toxic. And so every time the body goes in and pulls that out and puts it back into circulation, their body's not able to actually excrete it, so it goes back into storage. So they really struggle with being able to actually lose some of that weight because they're so toxic and haven't dealt with that aspect of it. So it just goes back in. So it's like there's more to weight loss than just exercising more and eating less. You also have to deal with the whole how do I detoxify piece? What do I need to do to support my body actually really getting rid of, out of the body, those toxins and chemicals and heavy metals and garbage that has been a little bit of time coming out of long-term storage. Okay, so intermittent fasting is where I, like we talked about on Sunday, stretch the length of time between my meals, right? And getting to the point probably where I'm a little bit hungry at the end, but not eating. And then stretching a little bit farther. Okay, so it's like if, the designated time you have between your meals is too long, then like we talked about on Sunday, giving yourself a little bit of fuel to keep going. Coconut oil, something fat, right? Something with protein and fat, right? To fuel you just enough to get you to that meal. Okay, and then getting to a point where, so the example that I was giving, if you eat at 7 o'clock and you eat at 12, that's 5 hours. If you're not able to go 5 hours, then giving yourself a little bit of food to get through that ending time, but only enough to get you through to the ending time, and then you eat your meal, right? And then when you can go from 7 to 12 without having to eat, right, can I stretch it? Can I either eat at 6 o'clock or eat at 1 o'clock, right? So it's like stretching the length of time between your meals from that 5 hours to 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. That's what's called intermittent fasting, right? So you are fasting during that period of time. Now, an easy time to fast is while you're sleeping at night. Naturally, your body is going to run out of blood sugar during that time. Okay? If you have gotten your body accustomed to burning fat, right, then it should not wake you up being hungry